In a year where the wrestling community was also affected under the craziness of COVID 19, we saw one of the biggest events of the year, WrestleMania, that was traditionally held at a big stadium, get relegated to basically being placed in the WWE Performance Center. Also, a creation of a new entity, a new idea by WWE that let the fans be a virtual audience known as the Thunderdome took over during the summer months and is still one of the most innovative inventions that WWE has ever done. For AEW, arenas were no longer the norm, as they also were relegated to a smaller venue called the Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. But the content and the wrestling continued, regardless of a pandemic, and never stopped entertaining us for one full calendar year. Tonight, we honor them by giving them the biggest stamp of approval in this as the most craziest year we've ever had, the 2020 year in review for the wrestling form. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Michael Flecha alongside my buddies Anthony Florio and Woodson. We are hoping to get Michael Bullock. We have not gotten him just yet, and we will await his arrival momentarily. So, like we said, tonight is the year in review, and not only that, but we'll be handing out awards to some of the biggest events and other stuff for 2020. So, with that said, let's start off with the year in review, and we'll start it off with, obviously, of course, the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble was in an arena, well, in a big stadium as usual. This year, the stakes were a lot more higher, as we had the Royal Rumble match itself, men's and women's, and when it was all said and done, Charlotte Flair stood tall, winning the Women's Royal Rumble and essentially cementing her place in one of the feature matches at WrestleMania. Now, in the other Royal Rumble match, Brock Lesnar took it upon himself that he was going to be in the Men's Royal Rumble match. And not only that, but he ended up starting the Rumble at the number one position. Well, it started, and Lesnar was destroying competitors left and right. About 15 competitors went up against Lesnar, and 15 failed. All that changed when a Scottish psychopath named Drew McIntyre, basically knocked him right out of the ring with a claymore and knocked Lesnar loopy right out of the Royal Rumble. The Rumble match continued. It was pretty darn good, and McIntyre solidified himself as the man, winning the match and going to WrestleMania. We didn't have to wait very long for who he was going to challenge, as we later found out that he calls out Brock Lesnar literally the next night on Monday Night Raw. For Charlotte, her choice was a little different, a little out there, because she decided to pick a fight with, at the time, the biggest and the best NXT Women's Champion we ever had in Rhea Ripley. The Nightmare versus the Queen was going to get it on at the biggest stage of them all. However, like we said, 2020 was a very weird year. As far as the Royal Rumble went, it was in Miller Park in Milwaukee. Then the pandemic hit right around March, and at that point, everything changed. Arena shows were no longer allowed. So the WWE, and for that matter, AEW, had to find different homes. The Daily's Place became the new home for AEW, and they've been there ever since. For WWE, they got a little innovative. Started out at the Performance Center and continued it until almost the summer. And then the Thunderdome was created. First home was at the MLA Center in Orlando, Florida, and then was later moved on in December to Tropicana Field in Tampa, Florida, in St. Petersburg, which is adjacent to Tampa. That will be the home of the Royal Rumble, and possibly, maybe the home of WrestleMania. We don't know just yet. We know that the pandemic has really caused a ruckus, a lot of problems, a lot of headaches. And not only has it affected us, in our world, but even professional wrestlers have also were affected by the coronavirus. In AEW, in NXT, in WWE. We move on to the Elimination Chamber, which was in February. And on that night, you could say the cards were starting to come together. Everything started to come together for WWE and more importantly, for the wrestling world as we knew it. After everything went down, let's see, sorry, trying to get the, come on. All right. So, after everything went down, it started, let's see, okay, I want 2020. I apologize, folks. So after that, it then led us to Philadelphia. It led us to the Elimination Chamber. And the Chamber, well, was a status quo, as they would say. After everything that went down, we witnessed a lot of history. Shayna Baszler went on to win the Women's Elimination Chamber and consequently helped herself become the number one contender for the Raw Women's title. She ended up facing Becky Lynch at WrestleMania, where then, at the time, everything seemed pretty interesting. Going to WrestleMania, it was a 2-night event. At the time, it was unheard of, unthinkable as a matter of fact, to think that the biggest event of the year, WrestleMania, was going to become a 2-night event. But sure enough, it did. On that night, WrestleMania took over and was once again from the Performance Center. And a lot of history was made on that night. A lot of history. First off, we was a crowning of new women tag team champions, as Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross ended up winning the tag team titles. Then Becky Lynch, consequently, which was going to be her farewell match, wins over Shayna Baszler, and a lot of people felt like that was a mistake at the time. Boy, did we not know what was coming down the pipeline after that. Then, Braun Strowman realized his dream and became Universal Champion, and The Undertaker and AJ Styles gave us a match for the ages in the Boneyard. The next night of WrestleMania, We saw Charlotte Flair realize her dream and become the NXT Women's Champion. Also, we saw a last man standing between Edge and Randy Orton. Edge, earlier in the year at the Royal Rumble match, made his triumphant return, shocking the world. None of us saw that coming. But they made his return and picked a fight with the Apex Predator. And my God, what a war was that. It ended up being a Firefly Funhouse between John Cena and Bray Wyatt. But when it was all said and done, it was Drew McIntyre realizing his dream and finally becoming the WWE Champion. And oddly enough, after that, Drew McIntyre has never dropped the belt to this point. At the end of the year, Drew McIntyre has been the WWE Champion. Money in the Bank started May 10th, and once again was from the Performance Center and at the WWE Titan Towers, or the global headquarters in Stamford, Connecticut. Now, the reason why they did it that way was to make history. A lot of history. For the first time ever, the Money in the Bank was going to be a corporate ladder of success. Men and women fought simultaneously for 2 briefcases. Asuka got the women's, and Otis won for the men. We'll get to Otis in a little bit. For Asuka, it was a big moment for her. It was a bigger moment the next night. Because on May 11th, 2020, Becky Lynch came out with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Now we're thinking, wait a minute, what's the deal with this? Asuka had umbrage and got really mad at Becky, coming out, screaming with her Japanese, and Anthony loves when she is a screaming Japanese lady. But Becky had a reason why to have the Money in the Bank. Because there was no Money in the Bank contract in there. What was inside the briefcase was the Raw Women's Championship. That's right. The Money in the Bank for the women was for the Raw Women's title. Becky Lynch was forced to vacate the title because she was expecting. She was pregnant. And she was going to be sidelined for 1 full year. WrestleMania was her last match. She could be back by this year's WrestleMania in 2021. We don't know just yet. She did have her baby on December 9th was the day that she had her child. Congratulations, Becky. And now questions are dawning. Will we see her at the Royal Rumble? It's very possible. There's no guarantees, but we will hold out. Remember, the Royal Rumble will now be held on January 31, live from the Thunderdome in St. Petersburg, Florida. Then we move on along through this magical mystery tour, as I like to say, as we also had NXT come full circle, as at the In Your House event, then NXT Women's Champion Charlotte Flair was forced to put the title on the line against the Diamond in the Sky Io Shirai and the Nightmare Rhea Ripley in a triple threat. When it was all said and done, it was Io Shirai walking out with the NXT Women's title. Then we had more events SummerSlam at the Amway or on the Thunderdome in Orlando. And that night, everything changed forever. Because that night, the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, realized his dream and became the Universal Champion. But his moment was short-lived. Because Roman Reigns came back and beat up the Fiend and Braun Strowman. That was a hint of things to come, of a possible heel turn. After that, we move on along as we had NXT 30. And during that little 4th of July road, as we like to call it, there was history made as well. Keith Lee made history in NXT, becoming the first ever double champion in the history of the company. The man to hold both the NXT World Title and North American Championships as he upended Adam Cole to win both belts. At the time, it was one of the greatest moments of his career. Well, that moment proved to be very influential towards what happened down the line. At Payback, it was Roman's time. And Roman Reigns defeated Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman to become the Universal Champion. Roman has yet to drop that belt to this very moment and this very day. In NXT, there was a number of scenarios that broke out. Well, after Keith Lee won the NXT Championship, he was prayed and fell to Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross was the NXT champion. However, the belt was dropped. Unfortunately, he suffered an injury during that match and was forced to relinquish the title. A 4-man tournament was to determine the next NXT champion. Finn Balor rose to the occasion, and the Prince became the king of NXT. Finn Balor has yet to drop that belt to this very moment. So for all of us here, we witnessed a lot of history. From the Street Profits winning the Raw Tag Team titles, to then getting switched with the New Day. So the New Day took the Raw Tag Team titles. The SmackDown Tag Team titles went to the Street Profits. They held onto their belts until recently, where the New Day dropped the belts to the Hurt Business. The Street Profits has held the titles the whole way through. The women's divisions on Raw and SmackDown was also very prevalent, as on the Raw side, Asuka, since winning that belt at Money in the Bank, has never relinquished the title since. Well, nay, there was a moment where she did lose the belt to Sasha Banks, but she won the belt back and's been champion since. Sasha, on the other hand, has had a rise and definitely a crazy year for her. From being as being part of the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions with Bayley, where Bayley was the SmackDown Women's Champion. Sasha having the Raw Women's title, and at the time, Sasha and Bayley had all the belts representing SmackDown. Well, the tag team titles did go away, as they eventually did lose the belts to eventual champions Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler. And then Asuka won the Raw Women's title back. Sasha decided enough was enough, that Bayley was the reason And Bayley turned on Sasha, and the war was on. It was until that moment where Sasha and Bayley went on a collision course, where Sasha realizes her dream and won the Raw, the SmackDown Women's title. The Intercontinental title was all about Sami Zayn. Sami was the champion. Having the belt, cheated his way, maybe a little COVID here, the whole 9 yards. Until last week. But we'll get into that tomorrow night on Ridiculously Raw. As far as the U.S. title goes, the U.S. title is currently held. I believe it's Bobby Lashley who has the belt. And that belt's been a little bit of a hot potato, but it's been pretty interesting. With everything that has lined up. And now, for WWE, 2021 seems to be a very interesting year, to say the very least. With the return of Seth Rollins coming next week, with Becky Lynch possibly coming back close to WrestleMania, and with Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns as their respective champions, who knows what next contenders will step up? Who will rise and who will fall? We'll wait and see. Over in AEW, it's been a banner year for this young company. Even though they got forced into a smaller venue called the Daily's Place, AEW has thrived and continues to thrive with great matches, with great battles, with great honor and traditions, and with bigger names coming to the company. Jon Moxley was the AEW World Champion until he dropped the belt recently to Kenny Omega. A new belt was created in the TNT title. The first champion was Cody Rhodes. Then dropped the belt to Mr. Brody Lee. Only for Cody to get the belt back. Only to drop it about a month or so ago to the current champion Darby Allin. The AEW Women's title was also a hot potato, as it started off with Ryu as the first ever champion, only for Nyla Rose to get the belt. Well, it went to Hikaru Shida, and Shida's been the champion ever since. And the AEW Tag Team titles started out with Kenny Omega and Adam Hangman Page, only to get dropped to FTR. Well then, the biggest match and the biggest moment in AEW history went down, as it was the biggest tag team battle that we ever imagined. The Young Bucks versus FTR, and the Young Bucks came away with the titles. They've been champions ever since. 2020 has been a weird year, and I think we can openly admit that. What 2021 could be one for the ages. Normalcy could be possible, and we all hope that it will. It's going to be a fun 2021, to say the very least. Anthony Florio, come on in. Give me your thoughts on what you feel is the highlights of 2020 for yourself. And if there's anything that I miss, you're more than welcome to fill the gaps, Mr. Professor.
Yeah, but there are some corrections that I need to address. First off, the Royal Rumble was held at Minute Maid Park in Houston, not in Milwaukee.
That was the first. Wasn't that the first year that they did it? The first Rumble where they did it in the stadiums. Was that the year before?
No, that was the year before. That was at Chase Field in Arizona.
Oh, all right.
We haven't seen a regular arena Rumble when that was in Philadelphia, but I think there were some other I got to remember if there were any other corrections that I need to bring up, but that was one that I definitely had to bring up because it was not in Milwaukee. That would have been awesome if it was, but maybe that's a
I
future
think
down the
I
road.
think I think this year's Royal Rumble was supposed to be at Miller Park. I think that's what I heard.
Oh, okay.
That's what it was.
But
This year's Rumble was supposed to have been at Miller Park.
interesting. But the Elimination Chamber was in March, not in February. They we didn't have there was not a WWE pay per view in February. There was an NXT Takeover though. That was in Portland, and that ended up being a hell of a show. And I think you pretty much. I think you got everything else after that. Everything addressed. Yes, this was, as we said on our Strictly Sports Year in Review last night. You know, this has been without question the hardest and most difficult year that we have ever seen. And for a lot of people, it was the worst year of their lives, and for good reason. And of course, the main reason, obviously, was COVID. And a lot of things went down. The year started with promise, and like you said, Charlotte Flair winning the Women's Royal Rumble. A lot of backlash. A lot of people in the IWC were very upset about that. Um, we all thought Shayna Baszler was going to win, but it ended up going to Charlotte Flair. I think the original plan for the men's side was Roman Reigns, but then a late report that came out, um, probably about an hour or two before the event, I found a dirt sheet saying that Drew McIntyre was the favorite to win the Royal. Oh, I hope this is true. And guess what? It ended up being true. He not only eliminates Brock Lesnar, he wins the damn thing. And big moment for him in front of over 42,000 at Minute Maid Park. I mean, the Chamber, the Undertaker returned, and that set up the big Boneyard match with AJ Styles. And when COVID hit, we were fearing the worst, and the worst did happen. WrestleMania 36 was supposed to be at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa, Florida, but that got kiboshed, and that ended up going to the Performance Center. We had 2 nights of it. I mean, it was very interesting to say the very least, and there were a lot of standout moments. A lot of new champions were crowned, and you know, Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross at the time brought the women's tag titles to SmackDown, which made MF very happy. Braun Strowman finally becoming Universal Champion, defeating Bill Goldberg. And Taker and AJ, of course, we all agree they stole the damn show on both nights. They stole the dang event with the Boneyard match. Edge and Orton, great last man standing match. Let's not forget about Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens. I mean, yes, the first match they had was meh, but then they changed it to an ODQ match, and they tore the house down. And then Edge and Orton in that last man standing match, amazing. And the Firefly Funhouse match that left Dee Woodson bewitched, bewildered, and so many other things, especially Dee Woodson. And from there, Drew McIntyre in the big moment, winning the title, and just amazing there. And that was another correction. And I can't believe you, MF. I can't believe you didn't mention this. You of all people being the Randy Orton mark that you are. Randy Orton won the title from Drew McIntyre inside Hell in a Cell a couple months ago, but then dropped it back to Drew McIntyre 3 weeks later on Monday Night Raw, the go-home show for Survivor Series, it set up what ended up being the show stealer of that event, the big match with Roman Reigns. But I'll tell you what, I mean, it was an up and down year for WWE. I mean, we saw a lot of cinematic matches. The Money in the Bank match was unlike anything we've ever seen before. I mean, that was a lot of fun, with the men's and the women's, both at the corporate headquarters. I mean, I had a ball watching that, I'll be honest with you. And then, of course, we also had the throwback NXT takeover with the old school In Your House. I mean, that was a nice feel. And they brought Todd Pettingale in, which I thought was a nice touch, and so many other things there. Io Shirai with her big moment, winning the women's title, which I predicted that she would, and then the horror show at Extreme Rules. I mean, Seth Rollins, Rey Mysterio with that gruesome eye for an eye match, and Performance Center. They did that for several months, and then the 48 hours before SummerSlam, the 21st of August, was when we got to see the WWE Thunderdome, and both Dee Dee Woodson and MF have both infiltrated the Thunderdome. I think Michael Bullock briefly infiltrated it. I've never bothered with it because I'm a very impatient guy at times, and I would not have wanted to deal with all that craziness, so I've stayed out of it. But it's been award winning. It's been critically acclaimed, and started in Orlando, the Amway Arena, then went to Tropicana Field, which is pretty cool. And SummerSlam was a solid show. We saw the debut of Dominic Mysterio, carrying on the Mysterio family legacy, and of course, Aaliyah Mysterio came into the picture afterwards, and a lot of interesting things happened, and Roman Reigns, had to leave because of COVID, and then he came back in a big way, turning heel, becoming the tribal chief, and dominating SmackDown for the last 4 months, and who knows what's going to be happening. Who knows what's going to happen with that? I mean, a potential blockbuster Mania match could end up coming out of this after what we saw the other. Up and down for Raw and SmackDown, and NXT continued to do great things. Keith Lee had a phenomenal year. That Great American Bash on the USA Network, winning the NXT and North American titles. I mean, a big moment for him. And then he got moved over to the main roster. And, up and down year for WWE. But some folks had great years, others not so much. But no question about it. AEW, great year for them. I mean, Jon Moxley, what can you say about him? I mean, he was, no question about it, he was their superstar of the year. There's no doubt about that. Will he be the superstar of the year? We'll find out. The tag team division cemented themselves as the best tag team division in all of professional wrestling, and some great events. Their pay-per-views were all amazing. And the women's division, work in progress. It needs work, but one female definitely stood out among the rest, and she'll definitely be mentioned among the women's superstar of the year. But some great matches, and Impact Wrestling, which is something I cover. I mean, they started with fans for the first few months, and then around April or so, they ended up having to move to the Skyway Studios in Nashville, Tennessee, with no fans in attendance whatsoever. And to this day, no fans in attendance. And, the year started with Tessa Blanchard making history, becoming the first woman to win the men's World Heavyweight Championship, which was an awesome moment when she knocked off Sami Callihan at the Hard to Kill. Unfortunately, that didn't lead to anything. It wasn't as amazing as it ended up being. I mean, I thought bigger and better things for her, but unfortunately, COVID and everything else put a kibosh on that. Year of returns, and Eric Young coming back and becoming a world heavyweight champion down the road, and of course, new faces coming in like the Good Brothers, Gallows and Anderson. They're now in Impact Wrestling. They're the reigning tag team champions, and of course, my standout moment from Impact Wrestling obviously was Bound for Glory when Rich Swann became the world heavyweight champion, and special moment indeed. And some of their shows have been hard to watch because of no fans being there, but they're on a hiatus right now. They're doing best of shows. They did a best of show last week. They're going to do a best of show again this week, and we'll we'll be back to live action the following week as they set up for some big things coming down the pipeline in January, including their the next hard to kill pay per view, the return of the Knockouts tag team titles. I know Dee Dee Woodson's happy about that because I know how big she is on women's tag team titles, and we'll wait and see how that goes down. And you know, some great things that happened, and hopefully, we'll get some fans back there as well. And you know, obviously they're in a working relationship now with AEW, which I'm looking forward to, especially with Kenny Omega coming in and that huge main event that we're going to see at Hard to Kill, that big 6-man tag team matchup, which is going to be all kinds of fun. And you know, it's been a very interesting year. I mean, we as fans, we want to eventually get back to our respective local arenas for a Raw or a SmackDown, or maybe even, God willing, a pay-per-view someday. I mean, we haven't had that opportunity. Um, April 13th, we were supposed to get a Monday Night Raw here, but COVID kiboshed it, and then it was pushed back to September 18th for a SmackDown. That didn't happen either, and I'm just wondering, will we ever get back to Providence for the Dunkin' Donuts Center for that? And but we'll wait and see. But hopefully, 2021 will be will be a blessing of a year. And I mean, so many great moments. And for me, Monday Night Raw. I mean, Drew McIntyre, becoming the frontline soldier. What a job he's done. I'm very happy for him. And then from there, I know MF was very pleased with some things on SmackDown. And I'm sure MF, you've got to be absolutely beaming after what we saw just 48 hours ago. With a little spoiler alert, ended up being the best episode of WWE television all year. Wait till you hear what we have to say about that tomorrow night on a very special edition of Ridiculously Raw. We'll address that elephant in the room. But very, very pleased with some of the things that Raw happened. Like I said, with McIntyre and of course the Street Profits. I mean, what a great year they had. Expect their name to come up for Tag Team of the Year, no doubt about that. And then going to SmackDown. I mean, that was a big get for them. And I mean, the U.S. title. I mean, Andrade had it, and then Apollo Crews won it, and then Lashley. He's got it now, and he's held it since, although he's done really nothing with it. You got the Hurt Business. I mean, the Hurt Business came in out of nowhere, and they made a major impact. And Asuka, what can I say about her? You know how much I love her with the Japanese gibberish and all that. But she's had a great year. Expect her name to come up for the Female of the Year, no doubt about that. And but Monday Night Raw needs a lot of work. I mean, a lot of repetitiveness, a lot of repetitive matches, the 24/7 silliness. I mean, way too many cutouts, and they really need to scale back on that. We need to scale back on the filler as well, and that's what's been killing Monday Night Raw in the ratings lately. But hopefully next week with all the legends coming in, that's going to help matters. So we'll have to wait and find out. But I'm hopeful for Raw. I'm hopeful that we'll have another good year. I mean, we won the Survivor Series. I mean, that was a redemption moment. I mean, after that putrid outing in 2019, I mean, I wanted the redemption. I mean, I'm happy we won, but at the same time, I felt that MF and SmackDown should have won. But for this year only, MF. That's all I can say. But we'll have to wait and see. But I'm looking forward to what's coming down the pipeline in the new year. And one of the first things I'm hoping for is that we'll get WrestleMania back in the big stadium and, get the big attendance there and all the big entrances, epic entrances and everything else. And the epic pyro, especially in an open air venue. You know how much I love that. And, we'll wait and see. So I don't know what else there is for me to say. So Dee Dee Woodson, let's quickly get to you and, share your standout moments, and then we'll start handing out some hardware.
I guess for me, some of the stand-up moments would have to be like, the war game matches. I love watching the war game matches. Both the male and female this year, I mean, they tore the house down. Um, but I like seeing, them do the battles in the two cages, and bring in the hardware and stuff, and it's fun to watch those kind of matches. Standout moments. I don't know if there's a whole lot that because there's just so many. There's just not too many to kind of pinpoint, but um, I guess another one would be, when we had the show where the Raw tag team faced the SmackDown tag team. You had New Day versus Street Profits. That was a real good match. I really enjoyed that. Lately, I've enjoyed most of the stuff going on with the Firefly Funhouse and Alexa Bliss. Even before we started fighting with Randy Orton on that, just Patty. I'm trying to distract them evolving Alexa into what she is now. That kind of stuff. I'm trying to distract them. That kind of is standout for Raw. And I think Raw will get a lot better if we stop having so many freaking rewrites from Vincent Kennedy McMahon. But it is what it is. So, but yeah, like I said, there's just way too many for me to sit here and just try to list. So let's just go on with the next part of this.
All right, guys. So with that said, we're gonna do something different. So as you guys know, this year was an unbelievable year, and we all kind of talked about it. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna start handing out our awards. So the first the first we're gonna talk about, and the first I guess the first honor that we're gonna give is, who do you think was the breakout star in 2020? Now, you can use any wrestling organization from around the world to answer this one. If it's WWE, AEW, Impact Wrestling, um, the door is open. The gambit is open on this. Breakout star for me, and I gotta go with Keith Lee from NXT. I mean, Keith Lee was at the time one of the biggest names out there. Had a big moment when he debuted at the Royal Rumble. Went into the Royal Rumble match against Brock Lesnar. A lot of people felt like, oh man, this could be the moment. Goes back down to NXT, becomes the North American champion, then becomes a double champion, wins both belts, to in turn basically makes his debut to Monday Night Raw and's done okay. But what a year for this man. To me, the breakout star, definitely Keith Lee. Anthony Florio, what says you?
I gotta agree. I gotta go with Keith Lee as well. I mean, with the year that he had in January, winning. I mean, his breakout year really started late 2019. I mean, when at the Survivor Series, he took Roman Reigns to the limit, and then got Roman's respect after that. And then January, that's when the year took off. January 22nd on NXT on the USA Network, defeating Roderick Strong to win the North American Championship, and of course being a participant in the Men's Royal Rumble match, going toe to toe with Brock Lesnar. I mean, that was a big moment for him, obviously. Um, Even though he didn't come out on top there, but still, big moment. And then Great American Bash on July the 8th, also on the USA Network. ending the longest NXT title reign in history when he knocked off Adam Cole, ending his reign at 403 days, and walking out with both the NXT and North American championships. And then he had some. I mean, when he first got to the main roster, he had some big moments. You know, he picked up a big win over Randy Orton, and but unfortunately, since then, the last couple of months, he hasn't really done much. But what he did in NXT, I mean, that was just too big, and I still think that he could end up having a big year next year. So we'll have to wait and see. So I agree with MF. I'm going to go with Keith Lee for my breakout star of the year. So, Didi Woodson, are we going to make it unanimous, or do you have somebody else in mind?
I actually have somebody else in mind. I'm thinking Darby Allin. Um,
That's a good choice. I'll give you that. No, that's a very good choice.
I mean, he's had a. I mean, the year didn't start off great, but I mean, the year got better and better. And look at him now. Now he's actually holding the TNT Championship and had a phenomenal match. I don't think I got to see it, but I heard that there was a phenomenal match between him and Cody Rhodes. So yeah, I mean he's got to be for me. You know, yeah, Keith Lee's awesome. I'd put him, right there also probably with Darby, but I have to give the hand to Darby because he's ending on a very high note and he's done and accomplished quite a bit here, a little bit closer to the end of the year. But he's just skyrocketed, and he seems like every match he's getting just a tad bit better in. So yeah, I'm gonna go with Darby on that one. So it's yours, Fletch.
From the breakout start of the year to the comeback wrestler of the year, Anthony Florio, you lead off.
This is easy. The rated R superstar Edge. I mean, Edge coming back at the Royal Rumble and lasting till nearly the end. And then, of course, an incredible last man standing match with Randy Orton at WrestleMania, and then the quote unquote also against Randy Orton at Backlash. I mean, unfortunately, he suffered an injury after that, and we didn't see him much after that. But the moment at the Royal Rumble, that alone, that really put it over the top for me. I don't think there's anybody else you can really imagine. I mean, Roman was around, but then, he had to leave, but that was because of COVID and the whole 9 yards. He wanted to be safe on that. You could definitely make an argument for him, no question about it, especially with what he's now become. And another honorable mention for me would be Rich Swann in Impact Wrestling after the angle that they did, and where they teased retirement, and then he only came back and he became the World Heavyweight Champion at Bound for Glory. And I really don't know what else there was to say. How can it not be Edge? How can it not be? So with that being said, I got Edge as my comeback wrestler of the year. Didi Woodson, what do you say?
I'll agree. I think Edge definitely was the comeback of the year. Nobody expected him to even return to the ring, because of his neck, and now, right now he's out at the moment, and I'm sure he'll make another return soon. But him coming back the way he did, and the phenomenal matches he's had with Randy Orton, there's just no way of not having him the comeback. So it's yours, Fletch.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's really much of a debate here. The rated R superstar Edge wins the award. I don't think there's, when it comes to comeback of the year, nobody saw that coming. That was an unbelievable moment, and I think there's nothing more amazing. He's amazing. He's everything that you wanted it to see. So yeah, so it's Edge. It's Edge. All right, so this will be a little bit of a parlay here. This is one that I don't think we've ever done before. Feud of the year. Now, this could be any rivalry in, like we said, Impact Wrestling, uh, uh, wherever, AEW, WWE. The one battle, the one war that there was so much bad blood that you loved every minute of it. Dee Woodson, what was that one rivalry that just had you say, oh my god, feud of the year? Who is it for you?
Edge and Orton. It has to be Edge and Orton. I mean, they had several very awesome matches there, and they tore the house down in that one where they went all over the place. So yeah, I mean, it has to be them. That they've almost injured each other several times. So yeah, it's your turn.
I'm actually going to disagree with Dee. Even though Edge and Orton is the most obvious choice, I'm going to go with something from SmackDown. Roman Reigns versus Jey Uso. This rivalry, the promo work of these two guys were so unbelievable. I was cultivated. It was amazing. It was something I've never seen before. And this is why SmackDown really turned and became the must-see show that it is right now. Because of Roman Reigns' heel promo, Jey Uso looking for respect, looking for honor, thinking that Roman sold out. And the way these guys were going at it, especially the two matches that they had, was unbelievable fights. Without a doubt, the raw emotion of Jey Uso after he had to fall in line and be a member of the tribal chief was so good storytelling that it made the feud more real and amazing. Obviously, I'm a little bit of a homer here because of that, but Dee, you're absolutely right. Edge versus Orton is well deserving of feud of the year as well. Anthony Florio, do you have a different one? Or do you agree with one of us?
Oh, excuse me one second. Yeah, the pop up video there. Anyways, I'm torn. I mean, those two are definitely in my list. Another one that's in my list has to be Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio. I mean, even though it dragged and dragged and dragged, I mean, there was just something about that feud that definitely made that definitely deserves a nod as far as I'm concerned. I mean, with the kendo stick attacks, especially on Dominic, and then getting Dominic involved in the whole thing, and then ended up, that was one of my standouts. Roman and Uso, that was a short-lived thing. Yes, the promos were great, but at the end of the day, though, I mean, Dee Woodson had it. I mean, it had to be Edge and Orton. I mean, I got to go with Edge and Randy Orton for the rivalry of the year. I mean, it was a great feud, and you know, um, it was personal. I mean, Randy Orton, RKOing Beth Phoenix, obviously on that Monday Night Raw, and that last Monday Night Raw with fans, and then the promos that they cut were just amazing as well. And the last man standing match and the greatest wrestling match ever, quote unquote. I mean, those were both great, and there was just something about Edge and Orton that I felt was the feud of the year. So I agree with Dee Woodson. I got to go with Edge and Randy Orton, although I do have to put Roman Reigns and Jey Uso as a honorable mention, as well as Seth Rollins and Rey Mysterio. But the only reason I don't go with that is because it just dragged and dragged and dragged forever and ever and ever, and a lot of repetitive stuff. So I got to go with Edge and Orton. So let's move on.
We now go to one of the big awards of the year, Tag Team of the Year. And for me, I gotta say it's the Street Profits. And their year has been unbelievable. They did start out as the Raw Tag Team Champions. did get traded or was drafted to SmackDown that led us to get the SmackDown tag team titles on them, and they've never lost the titles since. And I just feel like their body of work, what they've done to elevate the tag team titles, have been amazing. And for me, there's no argument here. Tag team of the year. Now, okay, I'll do it this way. For WWE, their tag team of the year is indeed the Street Profits. If you're gonna go AEW, you gotta say the Young Bucks. I mean, the Bucks worked their butts off, did everything that they could do, get to the top, and then win the titles after knocking off FTR. I mean, they have proven to be, without a doubt, the best team out there. So the Young Bucks is the AEW Tag Team of the Year. The WWE Tag Team of the Year, I'll say without a doubt, is the Street Profits. Now, as far as overall Tag Team of the Year, I gotta give it to the Profits. I think the Profits win overall. So, nothing more to say. Anthony Florio, it's yours.
Agreed. I got to go with the Street Profits as well. Other notable options here, honorable mentions. Young Bucks, definitely. FTR, let's not forget FTR. They had a great year in AEW. What about Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page? I mean, what a year they had. I mean, they held those World Tag Team titles for a very long time. They definitely deserve to be in the running for that. I'll even throw in a team from Impact Wrestling. What about Ethan Page and Josh Alexander of the North? I mean, you can't leave them out. I mean, the North had a hell of a year as well. And comeback tag team of the year, hands down about it. If we had one for that, it would be the Motor City Machine Guns. I mean, nobody saw them coming, and look what they did. You know, becoming the Impact Tag Team champions. And you know, a lot of great tag teams indeed. But for me, I mean, the Profits. I mean, what can you say about them? I mean, they won the Raw tag titles in March from Seth Rollins and Murphy. They never lost them. They had to relinquish them because they were drafted to SmackDown in that belt swap with the New Day with Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, and since they got the SmackDown tag titles, they haven't lost those either. I mean, from March on, there's been no better tag team in the world of professional wrestling than Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. So no question about it. MF, you got this one right. Tag team of the year, no doubt about it. It is the Street Profits. So Didi Woodson, unanimous, or do you have somebody else?
No, it's unanimous. And yeah, I also agree, you know, for comeback, the Motor City Machine Guns, because, you know, that they were one of the most awesome back when Impact started. They were one of the most awesome teams that they had. So, but yeah, for the year, it has to be Street Profits. They've really proven that they deserved to be brought up, and they deserve to have the titles. And you know, now they've been the champions for both shows. So, plus they've had the NXT tag titles at one time. So you know, yeah, there's just no one that would fit that banner anymore. Yeah, next on the line would be the Young Bucks, but yeah, definitely the top one is the Street Profits. So it's yours, Fletch.
Next up we have is the pay-per-view / WW or professional wrestling special of the year. Now, this one could be an NXT takeover event where they had it either on USA or on the WWE network. If there was a special event that was AEW sanctioned or one of their pay-per-views, WWE pay-per-view, or even an Impact Wrestling event that stood out as the best show of the year. Anthony Florio, this is yours. Who do you got?
So many great events to choose from, so little time to figure it out. But if I had to pick one event from the year that really stood out for me, I mean, I would probably have to go. Well, as far as WWE pay per view of the year, no doubt about it, it was TLC. I mean, TLC was just unbelievable. I mean, the body of work on that was just incredible. Um, AEW event of the year, I mean, you would have to make an argument for the Full Gear. I mean, that was an amazing show. Um, Impact Wrestling, I mean, Slammiversary was just amazing, and so was Bound for Glory, and the whole 9 yards. NXT had some great takeovers. I mean, Portland was amazing, and the War Games was awesome. I mean, so hard, but but just so many with so much great action in the whole 9 yards. I mean, the pay per view of the year for me, no question about this. I mean, I've done a lot of research. I've looked into all of this. If I, when it comes to the event of this year, I mean, there is, I narrowed it down 2 to 10. Um, you know, I mean, honorable mentions. I mean, Survivor Series. I mean, Survivor Series should get a look. Takeover 30. I mean, that was incredible. Um, no doubt about that. I mean, especially Kyle O'Reilly and Finn Balor. That was amazing. WrestleMania. I think that definitely deserves a look. Um, we already know our reasonings for that. We got into all the big moments there. Clash of Champions. I mean, that was a surprisingly good show. I mean, the B pay-per-views really stepped up this year. Takeover Portland. You definitely have to go out of your way to watch that one. That definitely deserves a look. No question about that. Takeover Portland. That was also in my list. Let me see. What else do I have? I'm even going to show some love for New Japan Pro Wrestling. I mean, the New Beginning in Osaka. I mean, you got to go out of your way to you got to take a look at that. I mean, Naito and Kenta for the IWGP Heavyweight and Intercontinental belts was amazing. But to me, John Moxley and Suzuki and Minoru Suzuki, Takahashi and Ryu Lee. I mean, you gotta go out of your way to see those matches. Hell in a Cell. I mean, Hell in a Cell is also there. AEW Revolution. Let's not forget about that. I mean, especially with the big tag team matchup. Wrestle Kingdom 14. That definitely deserves an honorable mention. But at the end of the day, my number one event of 2020, after everything, I do have to make one correction. Royal Rumble was WWE's pay-per-view of the year. And for me, my pay-per-view of the year, it's the Royal Rumble. Now, Royal Rumble couldn't match the in-ring fare served up in New Japan or even AEW at times, but it was one of the most emotionally pleasing nights in modern wrestling history. The card was still a good one and one of the best road to WrestleMania kickoffs in years. Roman Reigns and King Corbin opened things nicely with a Falls Count Anywhere slugfest. The Women's Rumble that followed that neatly. Charlotte Flair was the right winner too, regardless of what the haters have to say. Bayley and Lacey Evans fell out of place, but Becky Lynch and Asuka in the final female bout harked back to their 2019 effort with serious panache. It'd be remiss not to mention how hard Bray Wyatt and Daniel Bryan worked to get their strap gimmick over, or how pleasant it was to see Edge make his in-ring return after 9 years on the shelf. To top it all off, Drew McIntyre received one of the loudest cheers of the year for winning the Men's Rumble. The Rumble Might not have been stacked with 5-star stunners or classics or anything, but it was a serious highlight of 2020 that should be cherished forever. So for me, my pay-per-view of the year, the WWE 2020 Royal Rumble. Didi Woodson, what says you?
I'm going to go with NXT War Games because, I mean, like I said earlier, they tore the house down with both War Games. You had these 8 individuals from, both the men and the women that just, I mean, they it's just unbelievable some of the stuff that they went through, and you've seen them come out with the injuries. I mean, Candice LeRae, she's got a broken arm from the match, and some of them we haven't even seen return yet from having injuries. So yeah, I mean, this is it was awesome, and very surprising to me to see um, the men's War Games, and to see how well McAfee did it in that. So yeah, not much more I'm going to add on it. I mean, that there, like you said, there's a lot of really great pay-per-views, but for me, I guess one of my biggest ones has to be War Games. So yeah, it's yours, Fletch.
I can't disagree with either one of you. I mean, you could easily make an argument for War Games to be the best. You can make an argument that the Rumble was amazing as well. Um, Anthony, you hit it on the head with New Japan with the New Beginnings. I remember that event very well. Um, that was a crazy, crazy night, to say the very least. And yeah, that event was amazing as well. So I mean, but I'm gonna go with Didi on this one. I'm gonna give War Games the win and give it the event of the year. No doubt about it. All right, guys. Now we're gonna get into a major debate, and this is gonna probably create a hornet's nest. But get ready. Female Wrestler of the Year. You already know the names. You probably know them already. Who was the one that stood out among the rest as the best female wrestler of 2020? Didi Woodson, it is your honor. You get to lead off.
I'm going with Asuka. I mean,
Agreed. Yes.
She just basically tore it down. I mean, she's had, like you said, she's had the title pretty much from the time that Becky handed it to her, just minus the little bit of time that she was cheated out of it by Bayley and Sasha. And she still has the title. She's still defending the title. She's still, she's kind of, I guess you could say, she's the glue holding the Raw women's division together right now. And so, yeah, I there's no doubt. I mean, an honorable mention for me would be Io Shirai as a second, but no, for the female of the year, it has to go to Asuka because she's basically, held the women's division for most of the year for Raw. So it's yours, Fletch.
I mean, you could easily make a debate that Sasha deserves the honor. You could say Io Shirai from NXT definitely deserves it. You could even make an argument that Hikaru Shida from AEW. You could even make an argument that Thunder Rosa from NWA definitely deserves it because Thunder Rosa held the belt almost the entire year until she dropped it recently to Serena Deeb. But it's been and always has been the Empress of Tomorrow. Asuka, without a doubt, is the female wrestler of the year for 2020. She has been the most dominating, the best, even when she had her partnership with Kairi Sane. Of course, the Kabuki Warriors, when they had that going, they were pretty dominating and powerful and an impact in that wrestling. But Asuka has become the face of the women's division. Right after Becky Lynch left, after the announcement that she was pregnant, Asuka took the mantle of Monday Night Raw and has ran with it since then, and has basically vanquished every competitor or every challenge that has been in her way. She stood it with glory, with honor, with grace, whatever you want to say. It's been Asuka's world, and we've been living in it. Asuka was the most dominating champion, I believe, in 2016, 2017, and was, at the time, we named her, at the time, Wrestler of the Year, Female Wrestler of the Year. This is her year again. Asuka, Female Wrestler of the Year 2020. Anthony Florio, is it unanimous?
I mean, it's very tough. I mean, this is a tough one. I mean, Asuka. I mean, she had a great year, no question about it. But I mean, what about Bayley? I mean, Bayley had a great year. I mean, she held that SmackDown Women's Championship almost the entire year up until October. I mean, dominated with that. Io Shirai, what can you say about her with the NXT Women's title? I mean, no question about it. But Asuka was great, but there's just something about Shida though. I mean, Hikaru Shida, I mean, dominated with the AEW Women's Championship. Another one who I think deserves an honorable mention, Deonna Purrazzo, the Virtuosa from Impact Wrestling. I mean, with how well she's been with the Knockouts title. And but at the end, though, I mean, Asuka, I mean, what can you say? I mean, yes, she did have that little hiccup with Sasha Banks, which was ridiculous in the first place. I didn't really like that, to be honest with you. I mean, she should have held the title the whole way through. I think if she had done that, I think she would have garnered my vote. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love Asuka, and you know how much I love her and all, but I'm sorry, I got to go with Hikaru Shida. I mean, Shida for me, dominated. I mean, before she won the title, I mean, she kept winning and winning and winning and winning, and won the title from Nyla Rose at Double or Nothing, and she's held the title since, and she has definitely put a stranglehold on that AEW women's division. Asuka, I love you. Don't get me wrong. You know how much I do, especially the gibberish, but I'm sorry. I got to go with another. I mean, right country, wrong performer. I got to go with Hikaru Shida based on body of work alone. So I think she only lost one match the entire year. I don't think she I think she has won almost every match she's been in almost the whole way. So I got to go with the numbers. I got to go with the body of work. I got to go with the dominance. Hikaru Shida is my women's wrestler of the year.
All right. Okay, so now we go to the men's wrestler of the year. And this one is tough. Going into it, I think you easily could make an argument for Drew McIntyre. And I know a lot of people are going to say Drew. A lot of people are going to say it's Drew. I could make an argument for Kenny Omega. And especially now, especially towards the end of the year, Omega, without a doubt, has become one of the biggest champions and one of the most dominating individuals we've ever seen in wrestling. I think Omega definitely deserves it. You can make an argument maybe for Roman after his return. What he's been doing, his body of work. Randy Orton is in there. McIntyre is there. If you want, you can talk about maybe Rich Swann, his run becoming the Impact Wrestling World Champion. But I kind of got to give it to Omega because of the fact of this. One, his tag team reign with Adam Hangman Page. Two, his domination in AAA. He's still, since winning from Heroes and Immortales, he has been the AAA Mega Champion, or like Anthony would love me to say, the Mega Campeón de Físico Completo in AAA. So he's been that since he won the belt and been a champion for almost a year now in AAA. With what he's done in AEW now, being the AEW World Champion, knocking off Jon Moxley, who also will get an honorable mention for his amazing run as World Champion. He's been unbelievable this year as well. But as far as star factor, with the body of work, with everything that he did, with all the matches that he has won, just like you talked about with Sheeta, Anthony, you could make the same argument for Kenny Omega right now. Plus, with everything he's influencing, bringing a partnership with AEW and Impact Wrestling together, Kenny Omega, Wrestler of the Year 2020 for me. Florio, it's yours.
You can definitely make an argument for that. Absolutely. You could also make an argument for Jon Moxley. I mean, look at Jon Moxley.
Without a doubt. Moxley is in the mix.
Winning he only lost one match the entire year, and that was when he lost the AEW World title to Kenny Omega. I mean, since he took it off of Jericho at Revolution, he held the title almost the entire year. And, he is, as of now, the longest reigning AEW World Heavyweight Champion in that short company's history. You could also make an argument for Roman Reigns. I mean, Roman Reigns with the Tribal Chief stuff. I mean, it's been amazing. There are so many great talents that definitely deserve the honor. I mean, Orton, based on his mic work and everything else. But I respectfully disagree with you, MF. This one is a no-doubter for me. It's Drew McIntyre. I mean, how can it not be Drew McIntyre? I mean, if Drew McIntyre didn't have the year that he had, I probably honestly would have gone with Jon Moxley for my Men's Superstar of the Year. He's definitely the AEW Men's Superstar of the Year, no doubt about that. And but as far as overall Men's Superstar of the Year, it's got to be Drew McIntyre. Eliminating Brock Lesnar from the Rumble match, and then winning the Rumble match, then winning the title at WrestleMania, holding it for 203 days before dropping it to Orton, and then winning it back from Orton, and then successfully getting by AJ and The Miz at TLC. I mean, how can it not be Drew McIntyre with the year that he had? I mean, he became the frontline soldier after Seth Rollins. I mean, after they messed him up so badly with that Messiah stuff. I mean, before that, Rollins was our guy, but then Drew came in, he stepped in, and look where he is now. He is, without a doubt, the face of Monday Night Raw and will be for a very long time. So for me, my 2020 male superstar of the year, hands down, it is the Scottish Warrior, Drew McIntyre. How can it not be? D.D. Woodson, do you agree with either me or MF, or do you have somebody else altogether?
Actually, I got a tie. So half of it agrees with Anthony Florio with Drew McIntyre. The other half, I'm going with Jon Moxley. Because both of them have carried their respective companies throughout the whole year. And, you can't make, you can't argue the fact that they both, like Florio said, Drew has carried Raw through most of the year. Fletch mentioned, Moxley carrying it through most of the year. You can't argue with that. And, them being the top dogs as long as they've been, and, Moxley only losing when he lost it to Omega, which, even that was a little screwy of a loss there. But yeah, I mean, you just can't argue it. So I'm going to have to give this one a tie. So it's yours, Fletch.
All right, guys, and that is it. We're done. So next week, tomorrow night is another edition of Ridiculously Raw, hosted by Anthony Florio at 11 p.m. Eastern. Now, this is what's going to happen. We're going to do Raw as usual, but then after that, there is no Mikey's Mindset. There is no Tony's Take, because I will say that I will give we're going to give a SmackDown recap. So I will do the SmackDown recap as always. Anthony will do the Raw, and we're gonna do that for the next couple of weeks because this was Christmas and the New Year, so we're gonna do it this way. 11 p.m. Eastern, we're gonna do it. Shout out to my boy Matt Ward. He just hit us up with something. So Matt Ward says, for the first half of WWE was Drew. Second half of the year is Roman Reigns. He says, how can you not give the Tribal Chief Superstar of the Year after taking time off due to COVID precaution? Absolutely, you definitely can make a great argument about that, Matt. No, most definitely. Thank you for your comment, as always, man. Greatly appreciate it. And oh, that's right. I'm sorry, I jumped the gun. We forgot about match of the year. All right, so match of the year. Quickly, guys, let's go with the match of the year. I believe Didi was gonna lead off anyway. So Didi, what was your match of the year?
Actually, I think I was supposed to lead off on
Oh,
that
all right. I'm sorry.
because I think you started off on the men's side.
Yes.
You yeah, you
Yep.
started off on the men's superstar, the male superstar of the year. So I will I'll take the match of the year here, and great point by Ward, absolutely. Um, but at the we had a lot of great matches this year, but for me, there is one hands down winner for me. I have to go with Kenny Omega and Hangman Adam Page versus the Young Bucks from AEW Revolution. 5 stars, Shakespearean drama, 30 plus minutes. I mean, the near falls and the spots were just out of this world. So, my match of the year, no doubt about it. Hangman, Page, and Kenny Omega versus the Young Bucks for the AEW tag titles from Revolution. That's my match of the year. Didi Woodson, what says you?
I've got mine split into two categories. Cinematic has to be that Boneyard match. I mean, that was just awesome. The way they worked it and everything. So cinematically, you know, pre-taped matches, that has to be that one. The other one, I'm going to agree with Florio on that tag match. So with Young Bucks and Page and Omega. So it's yours, Fletch.
All right, and you know what? I'm gonna agree with that as well. I'm gonna go with the. I actually agree with what Didi just said. Cinematic match. If we're gonna go that, Boneyard definitely. AJ Styles versus the Undertaker, and then the tag team match between the Young Bucks and Omega and Page as the match of the year. Matt Ward once again comes in, says his match of the year for the men definitely agrees. Boneyard, Undertaker versus AJ, and for the women match of the year, Serena Deeb versus Thunder Rosa for the NWA Women's Title. Unfortunately, Matt Ward, I disagree with you on that one. For the Women's Fight of the Year, if we're gonna go there, Triple Threat, NXT. I think it was the NXT In Your House, as it was Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair, and Io Shirai. I thought that was the women's fight of the year, in my opinion. So I respectfully disagree with you on the women's, but I think we all agree on the men's. So, Anthony?
Yeah. As far as my women's match of the year, if we're gonna go there, um, I mean, you can make an argument for Charlotte Flair and Asuka from that Monday Night Raw, even
True.
though Nia Jax got involved. I mean, that was still an incredible match. I mean, just the overall body of work was just insane. I mean, you can also get an argument for Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley from WrestleMania. I mean, you heard me wax poetic about that many times this year, and I mean the Bailey and Sasha Hell in a Cell match. I mean, that got rave reviews this year, and no doubt about that. But for me, based on body of work and everything else, I have to go with with that Monday Night Raw match with Charlotte Flair and Asuka, even though Nia Jax ruined it because it was still a 5-star effort. So Charlotte and Asuka from the Monday Night Raw.
Okay. Dee Dee, do you have a quick rebuttal or?
Oh boy. I mean, they're all great matches that we've mentioned so far. I guess for me, I'm gonna stick with the War Games theme and say that that one was mine. So,
All right. All right. So that actually now that should be the end of it. I don't think there's anything more. Like I said, Ridiculously Raw, hosted by Anthony Florio tomorrow night at 11 p.m. Eastern, right after Raw goes off the air. Of course, Anthony will be covering Monday Night Raw. I'll be covering the SmackDown Live that happened last week on Christmas night. And then on Tuesday, we're going to preview the New Year's 6. We got that Wednesday Night Mayhem, as usual time. Thursday, and then after that, Friday will be no show because we're going to honor the new year, everything else. And then Saturday, guys, will be the NFL Saturday. We're back. And yeah, we're doing all the games. All the games are on Sunday. We just found out just minutes ago the Washington football team and the Philadelphia Eagles has been bumped. It's moved. It will be now Sunday Night Football. They got the Sunday night spotlight. They're going to be playing the Sunday night game. As of right now, every other game, check your local listings. As of now, the Dolphins and the Bills is still set for 1 p.m. on Sunday. So, until then, thank you so much for watching this. We appreciate all the love and the support that you guys have given us all year long. Anthony Florio, thank you. Dee Dee Woodson, thank you. And thank you guys as always. Have a wonderful evening. Good night for now. We will see you tomorrow night. So long for now.